All right, let's get right into it. Today, we are diving deep into the mind of David Goggins, a retired Navy SEAL, an ultramarathon runner, and honestly, one of the most intense human beings on the planet. His whole philosophy isn't about finding motivation. In fact, he'll be the first to tell you that motivation is garbage. This is about something else entirely. It's about building an armored mind. And Goggins starts with a straight-up punch to the gut. This quote, it's not just some clever line. It's his diagnosis of, well, pretty much all of us. He's saying that most of us live in denial about who we could be because it's just comfortable. It's so much easier to just accept the limits we think we have than to actually challenge them. Now, this number is everything. It is the absolute heart of the Goggins philosophy. He calls it the 40% rule. And the idea is simple. That moment when your mind is screaming at you that you're done, that you have nothing left in the tank, Goggins believes you're only at 40% of what you're truly capable of. So that raises a pretty massive question, right? What if he's right? I mean, what if there's a whole other 60% of you, of your strength, your grit, your resilience, just sitting there, completely unused? The rest of this is really about his answer to that question. You know, to really understand the warrior, you have to understand the wounds. Goggins' mindset wasn't cooked up in some self-help seminar. No, it was forged in the absolute hell of his childhood. It was armor he had to build just to survive. That's how Goggins describes his own father, Trunnis. See, on the outside, his dad was this successful businessman, but behind closed doors, he was an absolute monster, inflicting just unimaginable abuse on David, his mom, and his brother, night after night. And I mean, look at this list. The deck was just completely stacked against him. It wasn't just one thing. It was constant, brutal beatings. It was escaping that house only to end up in extreme poverty, living on welfare. It was dealing with horrible racism. And on top of all of that, the toxic stress he endured was so bad, it gave him learning disabilities and a stutter. And even after he got away, his life was just a string of failures. He basically cheated his way through school because he could barely read. And by his early 20s, he's working the graveyard shift spraying for cockroaches. He weighs almost 300 pounds, and he's just hiding from life. He was the poster child for a life totally derailed by trauma. But then, something snapped. Lying on the couch, just miserable with his life, he decided he was done. He was done being a victim. He stopped running from his past and started building the mental tools he needed to go to war with the one person who could actually change things, himself. So his first tool was all about brutal honesty. He'd literally stand in front of a mirror and call himself out on everything. He'd write his insecurities on Post-it notes, you're fat, you're lazy, you're not smart enough, and stick them to the mirror. No sugarcoating. By facing that unfiltered truth with zero excuses, he forced himself to own his reality. His second tool is called the cookie jar. The idea is this: when you're in a moment of absolute pain and your brain is telling you to quit, you mentally reach into this cookie jar where you've stored all your past victories. You pull one out. You remember that time you overcame a huge obstacle or pushed through when you thought you couldn't. Each one of those cookies is proof of what you're capable of, and it fuels you to keep going. And this brings us to the absolute core of his entire philosophy: callousing the mind. Think about it. When you lift weights, your hands get calloused, right? They get tougher. Goggins says you have to do the exact same thing to your mind by intentionally doing things that suck, things that are uncomfortable. You actively seek out pain to build your mental toughness. And this quote just says it all. This isn't about just gritting your teeth when life gets hard. No, this is about actively hunting for difficulty. If it was raining outside, Goggins would go for a run. Snowing? Even better. He literally rewired his brain to see a challenge not as a roadblock, but as a chance to get stronger. So, all these tools, all this theory, does it actually work? Well, Goggins didn't just talk about it. He used this mindset to do things that are, well, they're almost unbelievable. I mean, just look at what it took for him to even get a shot at becoming a Navy SEAL. First, he had to lose over 100 pounds in less than 3 months. Insane. Then, he had to pass the military's academic entrance exam, a test he had already failed twice. But the craziest part, he went through Hell Week, the most brutal military training there is, 3 times in 1 year because of injuries, and still graduated, with fractures in his legs. This is the mantra that drove him. See, most of us operate based on how we feel. I'm tired, so I'll stop. Goggins operates on a totally different wavelength.
The job isn't over when you're tired. The job is over when the job is done. That's it.
So Goggins basically sees two different ways to live. You've got the mindset of most people who are always looking for comfort and trying to avoid pain. And then you have the uncommon mindset. These are the people who embrace suffering, who seek out challenges, and who go to war with that voice inside them that's always telling them to quit. And that brings us to the final and maybe most important takeaway here. This is not a one-and-done deal. According to Goggins, this is a fight. It's an unending battle you have to fight with yourself every single day. Because at the end of the day, this whole thing is an inside job. It's not about being better than anyone else. It's about mastering that voice in your own head. It's about winning the daily argument against that part of you that wants the easy way out, that wants comfort. And that brings us right back to where we started, with the 40% rule. This is how Goggins sees the world. Most of us live our entire lives in that 40% zone, and we think that's all there is. But right on the other side of that discomfort is a huge reserve of untapped potential, that other 60%, just waiting for you to access it. So Goggins leaves us with this. This is the question that shuts down all the excuses, both from others and from ourselves. It's the ultimate challenge to those limits we place on ourselves. When your mind starts telling you, you can't do this, you just have to ask back, but what if I can? If this topic has captured your interest and you'd like to dive deeper, the book is called Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins.